Visit No One Likes Us Clothing for all your Millwall clobber. www.noonelikesus.co.uk.
Hi, it's Mr. Bye for Now from Millwall Football Club, and you're listening to the world famous Achtung Millwall.
Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to another edition of Achtung Millwall, the number one Millwall podcast. As you know, my name is Nick Hart, and we're doing another in our popular series of Listed Lion interviews. And today's Listed Lion is a regular contact on social media of mine with a great name, Lee. I mean, I just want to say Lee Harvey, and it just begs Oswald. How many jokes do you get about Lee Harvey Oswald, mate? It must be a regular thing.
So I think any sports team I've ever played in, the nickname has been Oswald or Aussie or some variation of that, which is fine. It's easy because it means, okay, that's the worst it's going to get, you know. You get that straight away. Starting to get to the point now where there's loads of people who've never heard of him. So it's kind of
disappearing. Yeah, I think it's an age thing, actually. Yeah. I think that's punctured my ego for the show, listeners. Yeah. Lee Harvey Oswald, Lee Harvey. Welcome to the show, Lee. Now, just to start us off, you're a surveyor for the Ordnance Survey. I'm fascinated by that because I've got this picture of you now walking the hills of like the Pennines with like one of those stick things, and you know, marking out. I'm sure it's not like that.
Yeah.
What do you do? How does that work? What's surveying for the Ordnance Survey? Yeah.
So we have plenty of those people. There's a few hundred scattered around the country. Well, you know, everywhere in the country, there's somebody that can do that. Yeah, I am a remote sensing surveyor, so I do it from a desk on a computer, and we have our planes that fly the country, and they'll take aerial photographs, and it's made into stereo vision. So I've got an expensive piece of kit that allows me to look at it stereo, and we plot changes through that. So it means that, you know, if our surveyors don't have to go and do the tiny little updates, they can concentrate on the important things that need to get on quickly, and we can do the stuff by photographs.
We were just saying off air, Lee. I mean, one of the reasons I love to do these shows is just the sheer range of people that follow our little club from Bermondsey. You know, there's what you might call the cliched view of what a Millwall fan is, and then there's the reality, because we get all sorts of people from all sorts of backgrounds, and it just fascinates me every time we do the show. And you know, this your profession now is a great example of that, because I don't know, in the cliched view, you probably wouldn't expect to be a Millwall fan. How do you come to be a Millwall supporter, Lee Harvey?
Well, just going back to the OS, when I actually joined about 8 years ago, they were replacing a lot of people who retired, and one guy who was leaving was a Millwall fan.
Right,
and they thought, oh great, we're getting rid of all the Millwall fans.
Quite another one.
And then I came in, but then 6 months later, another batch came in, and there's my friend Simon. He supports Millwall as well. So now they've doubled the amount that they've got in.
We get everywhere, mate, don't we? We're exactly, all over the place.
Exactly. How do I become to be a Millwall fan? So I was at Meridian Primary School, which is in Greenwich.
Yeah.
Around the late 80s, so the 88-89 season, and I wasn't into football at all. And there was a kid in the playground who said, "Who do you support?" I'm like, I don't know, nobody. And he said, "Oh, me and my dad support Millwall." I was like, "Okay, that'll do." And it just went from there. Yeah. And it went from there. And obviously at the time, so this is when they were. I mean, I like to tell myself it was the 87-88 season, so that I can go, I was there before, you know. Yeah. I was doing this before it was cool, but it probably wasn't. It was probably that season when they were top of everyone for quite a while, battling around with all the big teams.
Yeah.
So I like
Division
to say,
One.
That's right. Yeah, I got on the bandwagon and forgot to get off, and here we are in 2022. I'm still doing it.
First Millwall game. I mean, I've just got a little list here that we run through, listeners, as you all know out there. I know this is quite galling, because I was actually at your first game, Lee. I was on the halfway line, mate. Millwall 2, Charlton 2 in August 1989. You're 9 years old.
Something like that, yes, it will have been. But I mean, this is like the story. My story of getting into Millwall was a bit weirder than just randomly picking it because of somebody in a playground. So all of my family are from this. I am going somewhere with this. All of my family are from sort of Cheshire, Shropshire area. So mum and dad, all the extended family. So they're all Crewe Alex fans. My dad was a policeman, and he moved in the late 70s down to London. He was a policeman in Catford. So I was born down that way. I was born in Beckenham, which I don't think the hospital's there anymore, is it?
Probably not now. No.
Not. So when they split up, I was moved to Greenwich with my mum.
Right.
And then that's when very, very soon after that, that's when Millwall, that's when I started
getting some success. Yeah.
So I started getting into football because the kids in the playground were into it. My mum took me. She was the one who took me to my first game.
So that was the 2-2 game that your mum took you to.
Yeah. So even most of the maybe it's different these days, but most of the stories I hear of people going to football was because their dad took them, and it wasn't like that for me at all. It's because my mum took me, and she wasn't. I don't think she was really interested. It was just she knew I wanted to go, so she took me down there. She always told me that she took a book. She thought she'd be bored. She took a book, and she said she never took it out of her bag though. She got right into it, and we still go now. And in fact, the last game that I saw was. Because obviously I've not been living in London.
It was
the Stoke City game, the first game of the season.
Right.
And I went with my mum to that.
Wow.
She still loves going.
So your mum became hooked on the club at the same time as she took you then, from 1989?
Yeah, but also we've got, my nephew supports West Ham and my brother-in-law supports West Ham. So, and my sister's a Manchester United fan. So she's a bit all over the place, she just wants us all to win because that's what mums do, isn't it? But
Absolutely.
But in terms of live football, she goes to the den. She doesn't go anywhere else.
That's a fantastic story, Lee. Yeah. That's a fantastic story. I wasn't expecting that. I mean, as we've said already, I mean, the stories of how people come to follow the Lions are always individual and always different. But that is certainly very, very different. I mean, for your mum to take you, I don't think I've come across that one yet. It's generally your dad or mates, isn't it?
Well, exactly, and that's something that why I was interested, why I thought you might be interested to hear it, because you always hear about Millwall fans, it's a family thing. It's passed down.
Yeah.
I have absolutely no link to the club whatsoever. in that sense, it's just pure geography and timing
and chance. Because if the kid had said some other club, it might have been them. You don't know.
Exactly. Like I say, my dad. If they hadn't split up, I probably would have ended up following Crewe Alex. Or I've got lots of cousins who support Liverpool. My sister was born up in Manchester, so although she didn't get into football till later, Manchester United fan. Yes, it's just pure chance.
Worst option for you from Beckenham, being born in Beckenham, Lee, would have been you might have been embroiled in Crystal Palace, mate. That'd have been awful.
Oh yeah.
See that?
I mean, even in Greenwich, the local team there, Charlton, really.
Charlton, that could have been awful, couldn't it?
But at the time, they were playing at Selhurst Park, so the closest team was Millwall.
Yeah, that's right. They were homeless at that time.
Exactly. I expect the kid in the playground that got me into them was, passed down through family the same way that yourself and most other Millwall fans was. I can't remember his name now, but
it does vary. I mean, my family came from the area, Bermondsey, but I personally had no particular link to the club. It's just, I suppose, a sense of chance that's where I first my first game. So I suppose that's it. But these things do make a difference. Can you remember the match 2 each? Can you remember anything of it, or is it?
I'm pretty sure. Wasn't it like a really, really late equaliser or something?
The indoors scored in injury time.
I'm pretty sure I missed it.
Right.
And remember, I think I was trying to buy.
That's anticlimactically. I was hoping for like a crescendo.
like I was saying off air, your memory of the things I'm going to talk about are probably up until we get to about 2000. Probably going to be better than mine because I, you touched on it being up north. I'm back in Glossop now. Glossop's a North Derbyshire. It's between Manchester and Sheffield, and it's on the Manchester side. And that is where I spent the first couple of years when I was in Greenwich supporting Millwall there. But for the next sort of 10, 11, 12 years, I was in Glossop, which is where I am now. I can't remember where I was going with this now.
Do you still? I mean, obviously, you said you were at the Stoke game, start of the season. Do you still? Do you watch the iFollow games and all that kind of thing if you get a chance to, or how often do you get down? Normally,
so the family's all still in Sidcup,
right?
So I can visit. It's not too bad. So I do get at least once a year. I actually didn't get there from Southampton too much. I expect I'll probably see more games now being here because I'm going to Huddersfield this Saturday, for example, because that's actually the local game. That's a
nearby trip for you.
It's not far at all. But the difference is one of my best friends is living in New Mills, which is just south of here. But he's from Droylsden in Manchester, but he's a Millwall fan through an even more bizarre circumstance than me. It was his dad. He's born and bred in East Manchester in Droylsden. His dad was a railway worker who's a Manchester City fan who went down to work on railways in London, went to the Den lots and took that back up north. And so now Chris is, at least I was there next door. He's got absolutely no, he's a northerner. He's a mank. He doesn't even like London.
No, there is a strangely addictive quality to it. I've often tried to analyse. I mean, we said just before we started recording, my wife is endlessly fascinated by the amount of conversation that can be dragged out of what is a comparatively small football club that doesn't ever really achieve higher things in the game, but somehow has a compulsiveness that I don't know. Maybe on the inside of the bubble, it's stronger, but. I must admit, it does have a compulsively interesting quality. I don't know if that reaches others. I don't know, but we try and reflect it when we do the podcast a little bit. But whether anyone else would do, I don't know.
I mean, there's certainly something very different about the club, and I've never really been able to pin it down exactly because I found as I've got older, I've actually found the game of football, maybe it's just a modern football thing, quite boring now.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's certainly the Premier League and Champions League. I don't care. It's all the same.
It's European. As we're recording this, it's European night. It's a feast, if you want, of top level football. I'm talking to you about Millwall, but rather than watch it on TV downstairs. So. Yeah,
I mean, even England, you only really watch now when the tournament starts, and even then, it's more out of habit, or duty rather than. I mean, that England-Scotland game, the other tournament was absolutely awful.
I'm not expecting much in Qatar, but it's odd how you will still feel a pull to go to Huddersfield, for example, on Saturday, and. For me, going over the river from where I am regularly, I can't imagine not doing it. It must be one of these kind of life habit things that you can't. If you shake it, you're probably gonna, not be around long or something.
Yeah, I mean, part of it's always about the, who you're going with as well, who you're going to see.
Social side,
yeah. Because I think, like I said, when I was in Southampton, I didn't really get up there too much.
No.
Now
probably had a social life.
Better things to do. I went to Reading once and thought, right, I know why I've not been here before.
You only go there once.
So I've moved around the country loads, and every single time I move to a place, all of the local teams clear out. So we've never. I can guarantee you now. I'm not in Southampton. We'll be playing them away in the cup. In the third round,
probably
guaranteed,
magnetic
absolutely,
pull.
Yeah. And I think Bournemouth disappeared very quickly after I got there. I think I got one game in.
Yeah,
I couldn't even tell you. Well, Reading, I suppose, is the one who sort of stunk around us. But that's
they're always there. Aren't they?
I've been there too many times. Up here, we'll probably get to more games just because there's a lot more northern teams around, I guess.
Local football.
Yeah. Well, Sheffield United have missed that one, but Huddersfield, Wigan, the usual suspects.
Wigan. Oh mate.
Yeah. Don't get me started on them.
That's the kind of end of the world for me going to Wigan.
Well, this is it's like all my I've been to Upton Park once, I think. Selhurst Park maybe once.
Yeah,
but I've been to Oldham like 5 times. Wigan 3-4 times. Yeah, Blackpool so many times, Preston so many times, and it's just like I say, the usual suspects.
It's whatever's nearby, isn't it?
Yeah, they all follow us around like a bad smell.
We can never shake them.
No,
I mean, you've answered my next question to some extent. The new den, do you like it? Where do you sit? I mean, as you said, you've only ever really known the new den in a sense as an adult. Still call it new den. It's not really. It's 30 odd years old.
I did actually get them to change it on the map.
Did you?
I emailed somebody and said, "Come on,
that's influence. I like that influence." That's
anyone can do it, Nick. Anyone can go on the website and
no. It's because you wield great power at the Ordnance Survey and you changed it. This is the myth we're going to build here, Lee.
Okay. Although I haven't actually checked to see whether it was changed or not, so I should have a look.
I really
before this goes out, and so you need to edit that out just in case. No, I'm pretty sure they changed it.
I really like the stadium. I mean, obviously those of us longer in the tooth go on at great length about Coldblow Lane, and it was a very special place. But as a football theatre, I think the Den is as good as anything. I couldn't imagine watching football regularly in many other places. Put it that way. It does it has a claustrophobic intensity. I mean, even on Saturday when we beat West Brom, you've got the whole Jed Wallace panto going on, and it does feel like a gigantic trap, or you get the place draws in on you. I think it's a wonderful location to watch your football. I know we're biased, but you go to other grounds. I mean, Reading is a good example there, Lee. I mean, it's just soulless and empty, and Coventry, the Rico Stadium, just empty.
Well, they're all exactly the same, aren't they? I mean, in a way, I guess we were lucky that it got built when it was, because it was the first one, wasn't it? After the Taylor report, there wasn't really that idea of how do you build a football stadium. So somebody came up with it. There you go, that's it. But since then, they're all the same. They're all a bowl.
Yeah.
And that's it. Apart from actually talking about it, Huddersfield, their one's a little bit different. But
so in design terms, I just like the fact that we're in the middle of however long it will be, a kind of a post-industrial wasteland. I just like the fact we're stuck in the middle of no facilities, just the odd kind of transport cafe, and that's about it. I think there's something quite very Millwall about that.
Yeah, it is very, very strange being so close to the centre of London.
Yeah, and totally removed from it.
Yeah, nothing's changed.
Wonderful.
It moved 200 yards down the road, but nothing else has really changed. I think gentrification kind of skipped that area, didn't it? It sort of skirted around.
It keeps looking at it, but they keep talking about starting the new Bermondsey project. I love you weren't there Saturday, but apparently there's a billboard that's gone up advertising Bermondsey Heights as a new place. I thought, like Crown Heights or something in New York, Bermondsey Heights, and they still haven't started it, as far as I can tell yet. So I don't know when Bermondsey Heights will come to pass. But
that's not to do with our regen, is it?
No, it's
still waiting for
Bermondsey Heights.
Yeah.
Wonderful stuff. Your favourite all-time player, Lee? Who's your choice for all-time fave? Who do you go for?
Remind myself what I put now, because I actually filled this in the summer, because we were going to do it then, weren't we?
I'll give you a clue. I'll give you a clue. Who's the highest club goal scorer?
Of course it was. I actually because you've put a memorable game question down, and I think I said something else, but I was thinking today, and I think I said like the semi-final, maybe the cup semi-final. But then I remember today I was actually at the Watford game, the one where Neil Harris scored his goal when he first come back.
Yeah.
And just like everyone going mad and what they call it these days, limbs. That's the one, isn't it?
Limbs.
Yeah. But yeah, seeing him getting hoisted up and that iconic photograph of it, that was a pretty good day, especially if he actually won quite comfortably. It was like 4-0, wasn't it? Or 4-1,
yeah.
Like that.
4-1, I think. Yeah.
So that was a decent one. I mean, he's always been there for a very, very long time, and especially because he was a manager through the time when I was really getting into actually going to games myself as well. You know, from that late 90s period through the 2000s, and you know, like we said, fairly recently. And even when we're on Sky, he's the one that they wheel out as the pundit who's got to put somebody on who knows about Millwall. Neil, come on, what are you up to?
You'll do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, very few pundits know much about Millwall. It's such a place of mystery that unless you've got Neil Harris or maybe Steve Morrison, perhaps now, no one else
whichever
knows
one's
about
available.
There are no other pundits that can cover us adequately, so he's got an income there. Whatever it does feel rather strange that he's not involved in the club. And you know, when he left us in the 2000s, he went to play for Cardiff and Forest, and it always seemed, I don't know, seemed something wrong about it to me. But football moves on, doesn't it?
What's bizarre, you know, we're talking about a club legend. You know, the top scorer, someone who's done it all for us, has been through everything. And the first thing that popped into my mind just then was if he'd only scored that breakaway against Scunthorpe in the playoff final.
remember the misses as much as the scores.
Exactly, yeah. Never mind.
Club legend.
Yeah.
I mean, those terms are bandied around very loosely. I think that is an appropriate term for.
Well, he is.
Neil Bomber
I mean, just being the top scorer alone, without anything else.
Yeah. And the managerial input, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You know, but he epitomised everything about what the club was, and instilled that into several generations of players.
Absolutely.
Which is still there now. You know, some of the younger players will have been there when he was manager. And the
thing is with Neil, whenever, you know, obviously you see him on TV, but if you hear any conversations or listen to him speak, there's an evident love of Millwall. He still does care about it, even though he's now Gillingham, I think. There's an evident love of the club, and I think that doesn't, you know, you don't always get that in the game. I think that's greatly to his credit. So I think that's a great choice, to be honest, as a favourite.
I mean, you say we don't really get that in the game, but I mean, we get that quite often, though.
Well, I think well, it either works or it doesn't. Because I'm just looking at your next choice for worst Millwall player of all time.
Now I don't know if he is the worst player.
Read him out. Read his name. Announce him to the world, Lee. Come on.
Lewis Graben. I originally was going to go with Kevin Braniff, but I couldn't quite give him that because he scored the goal that set us off to the FA Cup final. It was against Warsaw, wasn't it?
Yeah, Braniff had a faintly lovable, useless but lovable kind of quality. It was hard to dislike him, whereas I think Graben manoeuvred things, or things were manoeuvred against him, but he got to that kind of. There was a mutual dislike by the end of his time, wasn't there? But it went both ways. Yeah, and it's remained so ever since. You know, every time
exactly. And the fact that the worst part about it is he actually did quite well when he left.
He's a good player. Yeah, I mean, he's a good player.
That's why I don't like the most about him was that he was actually decent. You know, usually what happens is people leave us in a huff and then they go nowhere and disappear.
I think it depends on a footballer's ability to be abused loudly and regularly, and your ability to raise your game as to feed off of that energy. Some players do. Lewis didn't. He was not a player that you would listen to. Relentless effing and blinding and raise his game to show them wrong. You know, some players can do that and like it. I think I can think of Ian Wright over the years that would always, the more he got abused, the better the performance. But Lewis wasn't that kind of player, was he?
No, you just made me think of Lee Hughes, the amount of goals he scored against us. But yeah, you're right. Because Graben, he couldn't. You know, I think he scored against us last game, didn't he?
He's a good player,
but that's it. I think that's it. But yeah, I did not. I still hold a grudge for. I think he hit the post or missed very close against Crystal Palace in some dire 0-0, and it was easier to score because you can forgive bad footballers because in a way it's not their fault. It's not in a way it's not their fault because the managers bought them or whatever. They've picked them. If they're just crap, well, what can you do? But if you're a good player with the wrong attitude, that's not That's not us.
No,
that's not
Millwall. Not the Millwall we know, Lee.
No. So
I think he was badly depicted in the Michael Calvin book, the family book, where he's hiding out in the toilet at Yeovil Town. I think that probably was the decisive moment where the relationship had broken down completely by that stage. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting choice. I mean, I get what you mean, because for us he was appalling, but they did go on to a pretty successful career elsewhere and scored goals as well, Forest and other clubs.
Achtung, Millwall.
Most memorable match. Which one did you go for, Lee?
So yeah, I've put the cup semi-final, the FA Cup semi-final. The final was great. The game against Wigan, apart from the result, the Auto Windscreen Shield game was pretty good. I enjoyed that day. But the semi-final was the one that really mattered, because for us, we're in the FA Cup final. It didn't really matter what happened after that.
No, it didn't compute, did it?
No.
We would fail at the semi-final stage, or we would get close and never actually make it. And I think this was the feeling that a lot of us had going into the game. You had that fear that you weren't going to make it. Fall at last.
Absolutely. I mean, so the quarterfinal against Tranmere, the first game of that was a Sunday, wasn't it?
Yeah, 0-0.
Yeah. And my friend Chris, the guy from Drawsden, he travelled down from Manchester to watch that. I was living down in Maidstone at the time. And he met on a train a Tranmere fan. And they got talking, and they're still really good mates now. And I think Chris was his best man. So, really close thing. I think they go to some Tranmere games as well, quite regularly. But he was just amazed that the semi-final tickets said Tranmere /Millwall on it, because they were obviously all printed off before, everything. And the fact that Tranmere Rovers had to apply to be in the UEFA Cup because it took so long for everything to go through, all the quarterfinal teams had to do it. So, that's their level. So we're obviously that next level above, aren't we? We're okay. Oh, we're here now. The semi-final, that's where we'd expect to sort of fall short. And then you come up against Sunderland, the team that we'd already beaten twice, or certainly once. I think we beat them 3 times, didn't we, that year?
We had a good result series that season, but that was a game entirely. The semi-final was as intense a match, I think, as I can remember. I mean, it just seemed to be endless. The second half just seemed to stretch on and on and on and on, and you're waiting for the moment, the blow that was going to come when they equalised, but it never came. It was almost surreal.
It was tense. It went on for a long time, didn't it? But I actually missed most of the second half because I was in the St John's.
Well, you're not in the toilet again, were you?
No. What with Lewis Graben? Yeah. So when we scored, everyone limbs again. There we go.
Limbs.
So we're down with the kids on this podcast, aren't we? So everyone's jumping around. Everyone's jumping around, grabbing each other, and we're all cheering and everything, and it all settles down. And I tried to put my leg down, and I turned to Chris and said, "I can't walk. I can't stand up." And to this day, I've no idea what I'd done, but my ankle was just gone.
You broke your ankle in some way?
No, I think I'd sprained it. I don't think I'd broken it, but it's bad enough that I couldn't walk around. So we had to go. We went to the bar at half time, and I went. Of course,
need some alcohol to kill the pain.
Absolutely, yeah. And I went to see the St John's ambulance people, and I remember being like, "But can I go back out and watch the match?"
Sort
that out. Do whatever you've got to do. I was thinking, "Oh God, I hope I haven't broken it, so I've got to go to the hospital or anything." It's like, no, get me back out there. So we did get back out.
They lashed you up, basically.
Yeah. With the booze, that was it.
Wow.
So luckily, in a way, it was slightly less stressful because we didn't see most of it.
They probably gave you painkillers to mix with your alcohol, and then you're away with the fairies,
Exactly. But that whole match, especially hanging on to a 1-0 win in that circumstance to get to a cup final and to get into Europe and to play against like Manchester
United. That made it extra bizarre, didn't it? The whole European thing. The idea of Millwall playing in Europe was beyond the imagination.
Well, yeah, they've had to change the rules since then, haven't they?
Yeah, to keep us out.
That was the catalyst of not doing that.
Straw. They can't be having that.
Can't have those people in there. Oh, no.
I think that's a great choice. I mean, we were saying before we started recording, listeners, Lee was saying how he's going to, say many of the same things as many other people.
Yeah,
and it's in some ways these are the big moments of our club's history. But I love these little side stories of spraining your ankle. And the kind of relationships that get formed on trains going to away games. Well, this is what these shows are all about,
Well, the Tranmere fan Ian, he was with us at that match.
Wow.
And he absolutely loved that. Oh, who was the one who got sent off?
McAteer. Jason
that
McAteer.
Was it. Yeah, because he, the Tranmere Liverpool links, Bolton, I think it was. So he was delighted when he got sent off. But yeah, so because I'd sprained my ankle, we were obviously out in the town that evening.
Of course you were.
He was giving me a piggyback and went arse over tit and lost his 2 front teeth. So
it's like the Battle of the Somme there, Lee.
Exactly. In Manchester.
Oh dear. Next question for you, mate. Funniest ever Millwall moment. What's your choice of?
Well,
some of these funny moments are personal choices, but I do like this one that you've given there.
2 sets of notes here. Trying to remember what I'd written. So my set actually says about me twisting my ankle, but that's not the answer.
That's a good one. I'm going to give you a funnier moment. That's Dennis Wise.
Dennis Wise, isn't it? Yeah. That was the Mother's Day Massacre, wasn't it? So that's the same season. Yeah. What was it? We got a corner. I can't remember.
He's been pelted. At that time, I can't remember what the score was at that particular moment.
We were certainly winning because he was very on top form, wasn't he, Dennis Wise?
Well, he was a player that raised his game for the big time, and we've said it a few times over these shows. You get some players that are big time players, and Wise he was. Semi-final being a great example, but also the West Ham game. He knew what games needed to be won, and he had that ability to do whatever black, dark side of his personality, whatever lurked in, he would do it to win a free kick or produce a moment.
Before we get on to the moment that made me laugh, but I don't think we would have got to a cup final if he wasn't in charge.
No, it was almost like an effort of. It was an effort of will, because he would, he was towards the end of his career at that point. He's still a fit man, obviously, but he was very much in the final days of his playing career, and it was an ideal choice for us. I must admit, when he first joined us, that Wise and then Ray Wilkins, I wondered whether. They were, how would they be as management? But he produced one of the greatest moments of my Millwall supporting life. So you can't argue with that.
Even though we had to play against some of British football's finest teams like Telford, Tranmere.
But that's wonderful as well.
Was it?
We got into Europe by that kind of route. I think it's just so funny.
But then for us, that is an obstacle. And we needed somebody like Dennis Wise to get us over those obstacles. Whereas
absolutely, we're all losable games, weren't they? I mean, the away trip to Tranmere is highly losable.
Exactly. That was a very good game as well, actually. But yeah, the comedy moment was it was a corner, wasn't it? And we were clearly well up by that point.
They were all over the place, weren't they? By this stage,
and he was getting pelted by all sorts of stuff, and he put the ball down, went over. Collected all the money, went over to the Millwall end, handed it over to this kid at the front, turned around to the West Ham fans with a thumbs up and a big smile.
It was one of those moments, and I think in a way, I mean that showmanship to do that, I think is huge.
Oh, he knew exactly. Yeah, he knew exactly how we'd react with that, didn't he? In fact, it was like
it was like Bruce Forsyth working the crowd at some kind of show. Some people can do it, some people can't, and Wisey could do it. Just fast forwarding a little bit, Lee, to the current side. I asked you to name your favourite player. You've gone for Tom Bradshaw, mate.
I have. See, because like I say, we were going to do this sort of the back end of last season, and I probably would have said Jed Wallace.
Well, you can't say him anymore because he's now become villain number one.
Yeah. I mean, is that because he was just playing? He's a professional. He thought if he wound us up, it would help. I don't know.
I don't know what was going through his head. I don't know what was going through his head.
I'm not convinced it's quite as awful as everyone's made it out to be. But I wasn't there, so I don't know.
And it's the Den, and it's a soap opera, and everyone they want their villain. They must have their villain, and they got it because he celebrated. And
absolutely,
there we are.
Tom Bradshaw. You always like the player that works hard.
He does,
and especially because Neil Harris brought him in, I think, didn't he? And if you think about everything that's happened since he's been here, and how what was expected of him, he could have easily just disappeared. He could have gone out on loan somewhere. He could have failed and whatever, but he's still there, still scoring goals.
Hard.
I mean, that
works
finished
so hardly. Yeah,
that finished the other day for his first goal against Watford. He absolutely meant that.
And the thing was, he's got Barnsley, didn't we?
Yeah,
and he was known as a finisher, But as you say, he's had his problems, so that probably hasn't really taken hold. But that was a glimpse of the Tom Bradshaw that we're expecting to sign under Neil Harris, and hat trick inside 32 minutes. I think it put him in the same sentence as Erling Haaland and players at that level in terms of speed of 3-goal scores.
Yeah, we've got Vogel Sam, who's come from the German league, who's banging them in there, who we've paid a bit of money for, and then you've got Afobe, who is supposed to be this £8 million player, whatever he used to be, and one of the manager's favourites, and yet it's Tom Bradshaw, who we got from Barnsley, still the one keeping them out and banging them in.
He works hard, and what I really noticed on Saturday, because we've been going a little bit more direct, which I've done no problem with at all, Mr. Rowett. If you're listening, I love the Mill when we play it a little bit more direct. But so we're using Bradshaw rather than Afobe, Lee. Afobe's a bigger bloke. Bradshaw's not a tall guy, and he's strong, but he's not massively tall. But we're using him pretty much as a target man. He does so well in the role. I mean, he gets up high. And he's strong with the ball fired into him, and then he'll lay it off. So you've got to take your hat off to him, and as you say, the persistence to stick around for so long in very adverse circumstances. It's always been good for him.
In the opposite vein to Lewis Graben, he's exactly.
Let's get another dig. Get another dig in on Graben.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah.
You slag Graben. You slag.
And I do like it as well that he's come from the north, because I can associate with that. It's slightly the other way around, but you know what I mean.
I get it. I get that. Yeah.
So that's good. I mean, Lee Gregory is another one like that, who just kept working and working and working all the time, running, chasing everything, running after everything. So Tom Bradshaw, for now, until Zian Fleming starts scoring more.
Well, Zian Fleming is the coming man. I mean, I think the thing, and you mentioned Lee Gregory. Obviously, Lee Gregory needed his Steve Morrison, and I think Tom Bradshaw probably needs. We're hoping, Zian Fleming will kind of acquire that kind of influence. I think he does need others around him to create, but certainly he's a good choice, and I wouldn't argue with him as a favourite player. I do like your most hated opponent, number 10 question. It goes back to Beckenham Maternity Hospital, I guess, Lee, does it?
So, right. That answer is the standard. There's two teams. Maybe some people might think Charlton, but it's either West Ham or Palace, isn't it?
So there's a choice of hated opponents,
So of the traditional teams, it's Crystal Palace. Because we are completely nothing like them.
We're not. We're nothing like them whatsoever.
And in fact, what is great about the way the club is now compared to the past is we would have probably already sold Zian Fleming to Palace for half a bag of the that's what we used to do, wasn't it? It's like, he's half good, off you go down the road.
I think we're waiting for Zian to become worth 20 million before we sell him to Crystal Palace. But there is a difference, isn't there? Rather than giving away for packet of fruit pastels, as you say.
But they're nothing like us at all, and that goes against what I love about being a Millwall fan.
Yeah,
means that conversely, I then detest all this sort of fake invention of a thing. I mean, even the kit, they just made it up. It was because Barcelona are good, we'll have that. And they used to have
the eagle. The eagle, is Benfica. I think it was Malcolm Allison nicked Benfica's emblem.
Used to be the Glazers, that makes
sense. Claret and Blue they played in, didn't they?
Absolutely, that makes sense. The Crystal Palace, that works. No, okay, we're going to sling that out and make something up, and that's before you even get with the derby, inverted commas, with Brighton. What is it? If you've got to name it after a motorway, it's not a derby. That's what I heard.
It's the East Croydon to Brighton Town Central derby. It's not much of a derby, really, is it?
So that's the sort of traditional choice, but it gets a little bit more complicated for me because, like I was saying, when I was 11 years old, I shipped up to Derbyshire, where I am now. I did whole secondary school through there, and this was 1991 through to 96 was when I was at secondary school. So that's smack when the Premier League started, and when Manchester United kicked off, and they were huge,
mega, yeah.
So at school, I had the imaginative nickname of Millwall. That was before all the kids knew who Lee Harvey Oswald was.
No, you're Lee Millwall Harvey, like you're on some kind of Facebook group, you know.
Exactly, that was it. So everyone, you know, they were Liverpool fans, Manchester United fans mostly, or Manchester City fans.
Right.
So now I had no problem with Liverpool fans taking a piss out of Millwall because they're Liverpool, especially then. Have recent history of doing pretty well. Manchester United were winning everything at the time. Okay, that's fine. Whatever. We've got beaten by Warsaw or wherever it would have been that week. But Manchester City fans, and this is for anyone young listening. I don't think
younger listeners. They do. I believe they do.
City used to be absolutely awful.
Shit!
Not much better than us.
third division material, like us, like we were. Yeah.
And so that I couldn't take as like, no, hang on, you're not much better than we are. So for a long time it was Manchester City. I couldn't stand them. I absolutely hated them. Do
you still hate them in the era of like Qatari state wealth behind them? Do you still hate them?
No, because now it's the same. Well, you're winning. All right, fair enough. That's fine. But I've kind of lost interest in that end of football these days anyway, to be honest.
I'm with you there.
When you start getting to the top of the Premier League, it's okay, brilliant, well done.
It's of no interest. I mean, I find it quite strange to have lost interest in the current plight, so-called plight of Manchester United, are now fallen giants, aren't they? Especially with their noisy neighbours, as they call them at City. But back in the early days of the Premier League, they were hated as being like the epitome of glamour and wealth and everything that was wrong with the modern football world. Now they're kind of bit like an old Roman ruins, like the Colosseum falling to pieces, isn't it? It's not. I don't know. It's strange to feel sorry for them in a way, but
well, I mean, being up here, I've met a lot of Manchester United fans who are sort of local to Manchester ones, not the ones from Surrey or
Guildford,
or wherever. And their support is a lot closer to ours than I think people realise. Certainly the
proper
ones
fans,
grown up with families, and that's true of Manchester City as well. So I've kind of got a little bit of a soft spot for them, and because
here
of family members.
Here it comes, listeners. He's from up north.
Wow. Well,
here it comes.
I mean, we was talking about. We haven't talked about Teddy Sheringham yet, actually, have we? I think he's in my.
Well, no, we're going to come on now to our favourite ever Mill 11, but we can throw Sheringham's in there.
Before we go on to that, I was going to say, so we had City. I couldn't stand City. Wigan, because of that.
They're always in the way.
It was not even following us around, keeping us down. And it's like Wigan, and they're the same. It's the same with Bournemouth now, isn't it? Little Bournemouth in the Premier League. Well, then, are you little if somebody comes and gives you hundreds of millions of pounds? Not really.
Or Brentford, no, it's the same thing. I do find it strange. But Wigan, we had a period of our history where we were kind of obsessed with Wigan, and it didn't feel right then. It doesn't feel right now when I think back.
Even now, I'm looking at the table and thinking, "Oh God, they're in our division again, are they?" And you just
such a kind of I don't know, just a bleak place to go to, isn't it, Wigan?
I think they knocked us out of some playoffs over 2 legs. They must have had one shot and won the tie 1-0 over 2 games. And then there was the windscreen shield final.
Well, the late 96 minutes, or whatever they took it off us. Yeah.
And that again, with their, what did we have, 55,000 fans? And
55,000 people.
you know.
I think they had 5,000 people. They had one little section at the far end,
something like that. But
when they got the trophy on that day, I had to laugh because obviously tradition is that there's a cheer that goes up when the trophy's awarded, but they got the most almighty booed. I just thought that was so very Millwall, you know. No sportsmanship there.
Yeah, the other random team is Crewe Alexandra.
Crewe,
okay. Now I don't hate Crewe, but
they're hard to hate.
They were the team that, because the parents and families support them, you could not lose to them. I think I've celebrated goals that Millwall have scored against Crewe far, far more than anyone ever should. Any Millwall fans should.
It might have been you. I was up at Crewe, or it must be over 10 years ago when we last played Crewe at Gresty Road, and we scored, I think it was might have been a late winner, I think. And there was limbs, as they say, and there was like this kind of mangled, Andy Capp used to have like a cloud of smoke with arms and legs sticking out of it, and that was, maybe you were in there in that case.
Probably.
I thought you'd get overexcited to win at Crewe, but
but my mum still laughs at me because we went to a game up there and she was obviously in the home end, and she said, we could see you, giving the usual gestures.
You're giving too many wanker signs over there.
Yeah. Far too much gusto for Crewe Alexandra. I remember Darren Huckabee equalising once fairly late on at the Den. I was like, oh, thank Christ. There's not much hate there, but I can't.
No, just
they're stressful games to watch.
Smouldering dislike. We'll settle for that then. We've come to our last question on this Listed Lion series, Lee, and it's to name your best ever Millwall 11. Do you want me to give you a clue as to who you've named?
I know, I've got it here. I can see it. Yeah.
You've got it? Okay, well, you read them out then in that case.
This was a tough one, the goalkeeper. I've gone for Casey Keller.
Great choice.
But it was very, very close with Brian Horn, who I think was one of the... So Ian Dawes and Brian Horn, I think, were two of the players that I first noticed. When we were playing in the playground, I always wanted to be Ian Dawes. Everyone else was Teddy Sheringham or whoever else. It's like, no, I'm the left back.
Very sensible choice, if I may say.
Yeah. So it was close between Casey Keller and Brian Horn, but
you're going for
Casey Keller just stood out, and he had those big moments as well. Like not getting sent off when he should have at Highbury, that kind of thing. Chewing his gum all the time.
In American style.
You never see. So I've played in goal and I chewed gum for exactly the same reason, which I assume he did, was because it keeps your mouth moist, you can shout and whatever. Maybe that isn't why he did it. Maybe he just was American. But yeah, the way that he did it, it was very sort of casual, wasn't he? And
he had a fantastic mullet. Fantastic mullet, didn't he? At the time
exactly.
As well.
Yeah.
And he would refer to games where we didn't concede a goal as a shutout. And I was used to impress me no end. It seemed to bring in a kind of a glamour to the side. Casey Keller.
Yeah. So I'm a fan of North. Yeah, he was. Yeah, so I'm a fan of North American sports. So maybe that's where it came from.
Shutout. Great stuff. And then you got Ian Dawes.
Yeah,
good player. Great player. Skillful, elegant player. Ian Dawes. Keith Stevens, Rhino.
Absolutely, and again for managing and getting us
contribution
to properly. Yeah, it's similar to Harris. It was just always
absolutely
there through good times.
Neil and I did a show on legends, the kind of much hackneyed term of club legend, and Keith Stevens, from memory, I think we said that Neil Harris was a legend. And Keith Stevens fell into that category for the sheer number of games that he played and contributions to the club.
Absolutely.
On field and as a manager. So, good choice.
And players who have done it at different levels as well, I think.
Absolutely, we was in Division 1.
Yeah, and still still performing regardless of where you are. And obviously, I'm not sure if he has ever actually played at the third level. He must have done.
He would have done. Yeah, he would have done. Yeah. He had a long career in the game, a playing career, and then managerially. But I think he played in the third division. I'd have to check that. But I'm pretty certain he did.
I did see Ray Wilkins played for us at Stockport once. That was bizarre. Thinking of third level football. Who's next? Yeah, he's not in this team.
No, No, I think it is weird though, because Wilkins would have played in Italy, like the Football Italia's time, and he was played at the I don't know, Sampdoria and all sorts of places.
And
then to finish up playing for Millwall at Stockport.
The only time I ever the only time I ever saw Ray Wilkins play was a 5-1 defeat away at Stockport.
It's a long way down from the top. So we've got Keith Stevens,
Paul
Robinson, Robbo.
Again, similar reasons. Been there for us for ages, done it all. One of those servants, like you say, legend. I think that the best memory of him is that in the tunnel before the Huddersfield semi-final, and that game was won then.
It was just a sheer kind of aggression of let's fucking have it or something, wasn't it? I can't remember.
I remember later in that game, because you've got all the Huddersfield players, it's their entire season's on the line. They can go to Wembley to get promoted, and yet there's a throw-in, and they're looking at each other like, "You take it.
Who wants it?" Yeah.
I'm not taking that.
I think it's it was interesting on Saturday. Obviously, Jed Wallace is a skillful player, a very effective player. But I think it's interesting how the closeness to the pitch and the sheer venom that gets sent your way, it can really affect a player's game. It certainly affected Jed in the second half, especially.
It can't be nice.
Oh, it must be bloody horrible.
We just take it as like, that's what we're used to at the Den, aren't we? It's just every week. But, it cannot be nice if you try and sit and you're trying to do your job.
And you got like a mob of the most horrible blokes in the world bellowing at you. You're trying to walk up a hillside with one of those V-shaped things. I can't remember what they're called. Sticks, whatever they're called. Yeah, imagine doing that under a torrent of abuse. Kevin Muscat is a good choice. I loved Kevin Muscat.
Right, so he has got onto this list. I'm sure there have been better players than Muscat. He was a great player. He wasn't there for very long.
He was a vicious man, though, wasn't he? He was a vicious man.
That is what he's on this list for, just to represent the comedy value of supporting Millwall and what we like. Because you can have your players who will, not make someone go round, put the ball in the top corner from 40 yards, and we'll love them, fantastic. But we'll also love a guy who will run 40 yards just to put a 2-footed challenge in when the ball is already gone. And then have the audacity to stand up and go to the ref, arms in the air. What?
Absolutely wonderful fantastic player.
We loved watching him play.
He was a wonderful character. Obviously, I wouldn't want to be an opponent of Kevin Muscat, and I'm sure there was a screw loose. I might have to delete that in case that's libelous. But he was a great Millwall player. I think we'll leave it there, Lee.
He sort of represents that part of Millwall, I think, rather than him himself. You know what I mean? Although Terry Erlock is coming up later on, so maybe
I'm just looking at our midfield here. It's not exactly wanting for bite and aggression here. Our midfield listeners, we're going to go from Kevin Muscat. That's a pretty uncompromising defence, I will say. With Rhino, Robbo,
and there's four.
Muscat,
there's four at the back. There you go.
Dawes is in there as representing the cultural approach to life. The fact they can't all be bruising and muscular approach, but we a very skillful midfielder, Alex Ray. I loved Alex Ray, Lee. Great player for Millwall.
I was unfortunate. I didn't really get to see him play a lot in the flesh. So because when I was in Greenwich, we went every week. We had. I'm not sure if we had season tickets or not, but we went pretty much every week that they were playing.
Yeah.
And then when I moved up north, there was a couple of years where I didn't really see a game.
Right.
Because the only way I was going to do that is, bearing in mind 12, 13 years old, was if I was down south visiting my dad.
Yeah, so circumstances
he would take me.
Right.
Because he's not a Millwall fan, and he's an ex-copper as well, so he hated having to take me to the Den. He wasn't he used to have a cap and pull it over so that none of the police that were on duty recognised it.
Wonderful.
So I didn't really get to see him play a lot. The only time was when, because you had the ITV Sunday matches, didn't you?
The live game, big match. Yeah.
So, but that was all regional. So you might have seen Millwall play quite a lot on there. I didn't, because it was Bolton or or Oldham or whoever was playing that week. So it had to line up that we were playing a Northwest team, and it was good enough for them to put it on the TV for me to actually get to see him play outside of highlight shows and things like that.
Wonderful player,
but he was the star of that team at the time. I think that sort of early 90s team.
Kind of player that could single-handedly grab a game and change it, and it made a difference between winning and losing in a lot of his performances. Wonderful, dynamic midfielder, Alex Ray. Just moving through, I've already said that this is a midfield with bite. You've got Terry Hurlock alongside Tim Cahill in the centre. What a midfield there, Lee. Hurlock and Cahill. Yeah. Wow.
Hurlock is somebody that I just similar to Muscat in representing that sort of hard style midfielder that we do like, but he could play football as well. He didn't play for
certainly could
for nothing.
No.
But also to someone that I just really remember. Very, very few memories of the old Den, even though we went there loads. But I certainly remember him charging around.
Much loved by the crowd. His career was actually comparatively short at Millwall, but his impact was way, way beyond the numbers, I think. We're going to move on to Tim Cahill. And wonderful. Obviously he came over from Australia, so we'd kind of nurtured him as a youngster. But he also had a Millwall aggressiveness combined with skill, similar to Hurlock in that way. That's the combination. That's the magic combination, Lee, at Millwall.
Yeah, and it's the same with Alex Ray as well. But Tim Cahill was a class above. There's been a handful of players, I think, certainly the modern era, who have been that good. The fact that we sold him for $1.5 million to Everton as well. He weren't even that good in the Premier League,
No. It was just scandalous. I think we were broke.
It's very Millwall. That's exactly
Absolutely
what I would expect of us to do. I'm just surprised it wasn't to Crystal Palace.
That's the classic, isn't it?
Yeah. But what a player! And again, he was always there. Scored that goal against Sunderland at Old Trafford.
In a funny way. He might not thank me for making this comparison, but a similar kind of Hurlock quality in that we had this beautiful kind of golden period where Hurlock and Tim Cahill represent iconic moments of our club's history. Both made comebacks where they were basically there to physically assault players, and then they would get sent off. And that was that, So they both had that kind of anticlimactic, grievous bodily harm period when they came back.
You say that it was anticlimactic, but I imagine a large amount of our support would have been fine with that. That's okay. That's fine. Off you go.
It was a big. I was there when Tim Cahill made his comeback, and the club did a great job of building up the tension and ramping it up. Sadly, his legs had gone, his pace had gone, listeners, hadn't they? But not his elbow.
He also had that. Not his elbow. Yeah, he had that loyalty as well, which I think is something that Millwall fans certainly
respect, deeply,
appreciate, if not demand.
And he always speaks well of the club online.
Exactly.
To this day, there's a fondness in the heart. And we've mentioned Dennis Wise already, but he makes up the fourth member of the quartet. So we've got Alex Ray, Terry Hurlock, Tim Cahill, and Dennis Wise. That is one mother of a midfield you got there, Lee.
All four of them were fantastic players, as well as being a bit.
They could handle.
Well, Alex Ray was, If you've got a midfield where you're saying Alex Ray is comfortably the most sensible and calm of that four, that shows you what it is.
They would take some management, wouldn't they? But there's a great, there's a good level. We've got up front. We've got what a scoring duo here, Lee. We've got Teddy Sheringham teamed with Neil Harris. Sheringham is my choice of favourite player of all time, and I know that some youngsters get a bit silly about his West Ham connections and where he went, but the contribution he made to our club is immense. The goals he scored and what he represents, and a fantastic player, very, very skillful player.
Well, you're talking about Tim Cahill's legs. Teddy Sheringham carried on for years at the very, very top level.
He was still playing near 40, I think. Did he play at Colchester or somewhere? 40 years old now.
Something like that. I mean, it's funny with him actually, because a lot of my greatest memories of him as a footballer is actually not for us. But because because he was that, when I first went, he was the guy up front scoring all the goals in the old First Division, and everybody knew who he was.
Yeah.
But he was ours. He came from Millwall.
Yeah.
We made him, and then he went off to do so well. So, like watching him scoring for United when they equalised against Bayern Munich.
Yeah,
and then I think he flicked on the one for Solskjaer to win that.
Yeah,
so I was in 1999, wasn't it? So I was in a pub full of Manchester United fans, and my stepdad at the time was a big Man United fan. So I obviously wanted them to. And then my hero, my when I was a kid, has come on and has rescued the game for them, and it was great. And then
it felt like we could claim that one ourselves. To me, it was a Millwall European Cup win.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. But like when you are surrounded by and your little team's done nothing, nobody knows who any of the players are, and then you've got this guy, and you go, yeah, we made him, we did that.
One of ours.
Exactly. And then I remember watching. I was at the game at Old Trafford when England played Greece. The 2-2 one.
Okay, yeah, the qualifying tournament.
Yeah. I was in the Stretford end then, so that was the goal that Beckham equalised in with his free
kick. Yeah, late into injury time. Yeah.
But before then, it was Teddy Sheringham came on, and I think it was almost with his first touch, equalised before Greece got another one. Now, and again, for me, it was almost in tears, because that guy that's come from Millwall that I've seen for years do all these things has just scored for England in a World Cup, big World Cup match.
Another big time player, like we said about Wise. He responded to the big situation. Beckham was a big time.
Absolutely. Player. And somewhere in Canada, there is an England shirt. I think is it 2002 World Cup maybe, with 21 Sheringham on the back of it, because that's what I got when I had an England shirt. I was like, I'm not putting Shearer or whoever else it was. No,
that's what you want.
Sheringham, that's what I want on there. And a mate of mine, he was over from Toronto. We took him to an England game. We took him to watch England against Turkey. Do you remember that one?
Right.
At the Stadium of Light.
Big win, wasn't it? Was it?
We won 2-0, I think, with something like that. But the thing about it was there was a lot of fighting and rioting and all sorts out in the streets.
Right. Okay.
And we're in this pub in Sunderland, and we're all English, know how it all works. And we've got Trevor, this random Canadian bloke who has no idea how this works. So when the tables start coming through the window, we're like, right, we need to go now, out the back door. Everyone's outside. Where's Trevor? He's gone the other way. I want to see this. Yeah,
he ran towards it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I gave him the shirt that I had from that tournament, and he's got it out and still got it. So and this is like you were saying before about how Millwall spreads. It's a random
moments and random linkages,
London,
isn't it?
Yeah, in London, Ontario, there's a England shirt with Teddy Sheringham, just because some kid in this playground once said to me, "You support Millwall?" But, oh, okay.
Let's give a shout out to Trevor in London, Ontario, and his Teddy Sheringham shirt. Big shout out, Trev. And finally, we've mentioned already Neil Harris, but that's a wonderful front line you've got there, Sheringham and Neil Harris up front of Lee's best ever Millwall 11.
Whether the ball will make it up front to them or not, who knows? Because
we would do, because Stevens and Robinson would send it straight down the middle.
Yeah. You'll have Paul Eiffel sat on the bench shaking his head, going, "What is going on here?"
Eiffel.
Why can't I get in this team?
That's wonderful, Lee. We've reached the end of our series of Listed Lion questions. Did you enjoy doing it? Did you like the experience of being a listed lion?
Yeah, definitely. When you sit and start thinking about it, there's always daft little.
It's like Desert Island Discs, isn't it? I mean, you try and think, what would you have, and then you can always come up with other records and other moments as a Millwall thing. But it's always interesting to hear the kind of story of someone's Millwall support and the moments and how they played out in their life, and that's kind of what we try to achieve with these shows. I think it's doing fantastic. Some really unusual stuff here in this one.
Well, like I said earlier, I'm not even the weirdest story that I know, because my mate is from Drawsden, and there's another guy who comes out with us who's from Burton, and he's ended up with Millwall. I don't even know the story behind that.
Well, we'll have to tell them, we'll get them on. They'll have to come on, because these are the stories we want to hear.
I can guarantee you that people, when I talk about Chris, the floppy blonde hair mank, people listening to this will know who I'm talking about.
Oh, he is. Okay.
I guarantee it.
We have a lot of characters. I mean, it sounds like he's one of those Millwall characters that I don't know if other clubs have them, they must do, but we certainly, maybe they stand out more at our clubs. It's comparatively small, but
and you see our fans.
Love to hear from them.
You see our fans in weird places. Like I remember I was working up in North Yorkshire, and there was Scarborough were playing Bridlington, which was a bit of a local derby, local derby. And there's about 1,000 people there. And I'm walking around, and there's a bloke comes the other way in a Millwall coat. And I stopped him. I'm like, what's this? And he was like up there in a stag do or something. He lived somewhere up north. And I was like, it's Scarborough Athletic against Bridlington in the FA Vars, God knows what round.
And there he is.
2 Millwall fans there.
You wouldn't predict that, would you?
No.
Fantastic stuff. Lee, Harvey. I won't say
Oswald, yeah.
Huge thank you, mate. I've really enjoyed it. It's good stuff.
Thank you for the show. It's great stuff. Yeah. It keeps us people connected to the club in a way that they wouldn't otherwise.
Yeah, I mean that's the intention of it. It's if we can kind of hopefully capture something of the nature of Millwall and reach places that fans that can't get there so often, then we've done a good job. I really enjoyed this one. Hope you two did too, listeners. If you'd like to come on and be a listed line, do get in touch with me. I'm on Twitter at Achtung Millwall. Give me a direct message and we'll see what we can do to put it together. And I'd love to hear from the blonde mank mate of Lee's, maybe another day. But big thank you, Lee. Until the next show, dear listeners, which will be after the trip to Huddersfield. Give me a score prediction, Lee. Saturday. We're on a roll at the moment, aren't we?
Yeah, well, I'm going, so instinctively, I'm pessimistic.
But,
yeah. I'll tell you what, I'll go for 1-0 to Millwall.
I like it. I fancy us to win.
I'll nick it at the end.
Yeah. Until the weekend, dear listeners, thank you for listening. Arrivederci Millwall, and bye for now.
Achtung, Millwall.